I hate video game reviews. I've decided it, they just suck. I was originally planning on making this video as a big critical video essay, explaining in depth everything wrong with video game reviews, and doing like some proper research to explain it all. Instead, I've decided to say screw it and just have a bit of a rant. Now, I don't know about you, but I personally will pretty much never base my decision of whether or not I'm going to buy a game off of public reviews. During the latest recording of the Pipcast 3000, which is Kato Genesis's podcast, how do you say his name in plural possessive thing? I don't know. But during that, we briefly talked about reviews, and found out that both Jared Gaming and I don't watch or read reviews, but Kato does. So I at least know that I'm not alone in this, but there's going to be some people who don't agree. Fair enough. Personally though, if I'm considering checking out a game, I'll take a look at the trailers, read the description, and then not buy it because I don't have spare cash. It's a simple process that works every time. For me, reviews are near pointless to watch because they've got way too many flaws, and I'm going to go through and list all of them that come to mind. First up, different people like different games. For example, I like Borderlands 3. It's a fun first-person shooter that looks really good. Other people don't like the game, and that's fine. Not every game is fun for every person. I'm personally not a huge Dark Souls fan, but that doesn't mean the series is bad, it's just not for me. Talking about it like this, what I'm saying seems pretty obvious. But once it comes to somebody reviewing a video game, it suddenly is a huge deal what the individual reviewer's personal preference is. If I had to review a Souls game, then I wouldn't know what was going on, would struggle with the third-person camera, and just generally not have a super fun time. And that's going to impact the score I give the game, and the impression of it I would give. If somebody saw a review from me about a FromSoft game, then it could make it so they decide not to play it, and think that it's bad, when that's clearly not the truth. But I love me a good FPS that's also an RPG, just throw letters at me and I'm a happy chappy. As such, send me a half-decent game of the genre, and I'll review it real favourably. Even a half-baked FPS RPG is something I'm more than happy to play. But if I slap on a high score to it, then people who'd play it based off my review might be upset, just because they're not as into the specific genre as I am. While it is possible to get an idea of a reviewer's likes and dislikes, and how closely they align to your own personal preferences, this takes a lot of time and will never be a perfect match. And chances are, if you're out looking for a review, most people aren't going to have an in-depth idea of what the person reviewing it is actually like. You're basically just having a total stranger tell you their opinion, and with all due respect, who cares? And I say this as a stranger who is telling you their opinion right now. You have every right to not care in the slightest about what I'm saying and just disagree with me. Please keep watching though, my channel's in the mud and I really need to get the views up. My next complaint about reviews is negativity bias. While someone who reviews games professionally has the incentive to post a review no matter what, for your average Joe, they have no real incentive to post a review. And because of that, most people who are just having a decent time will not post a review of a game they like. They'll just have a good time and then move on with their day, even if they had a bunch of fun. But if something went horribly wrong and they hate it and everything is wrong with the world now because the pixels of the game are all rotated 360 degrees or whatever the complaint is, then you can bet there's a high chance they'll head online to post an angry review in order to vent about it. Humans are way more invested in negativity than they are positivity, and anger has a way of bypassing the more logical parts of our brains. As such, from a psychological standpoint, you could expect public reviews to lean slightly to the negative side over time. Obviously it's not a huge alteration, but it always sticks in my brain that this is a thing. Plus, the internet is really stupid. I've been talking about things on an individual level so far, but the collective opinion that the internet forms tends to be the lowest common denominator, whatever most basic point you can get through people's minds is. That's what gets latched onto, which leads to a huge oversimplification of how games are perceived. Two recent examples of this can be found with the most recent Zelda game and with Redfall. The Zelda game, Tears of a Kingdom, managed to be the highest reviewed game of all time before it was even launch day. Now don't get me wrong, I'm sure it's good, but if it truly is the greatest game ever made, that's a bit debatable. Not saying it can't be your favourite, but the near unanimous decision feels much more to me like the internet at large doing the standard good game has to be the best of all time, and bad game has to be the worst thing ever, which is what happened to Redfall. Redfall had a bad launch, with plenty of performance issues on PC, and just generally isn't an amazing game. The people I've spoken to who played it on Xbox had the general consensus that it was fun, if a little repetitive after a while, but still pretty decent overall. Yet the user score is a 3.3 out of 10 over on Metacritic. And to be clear, that is on the Xbox version. The PC version is down at a 2. While the game certainly doesn't deserve to get a really high score, the critic reviews are more in the middle of the line at around 55, which feels like a more sensible review. Certainly not good, but at least shows the game has some redeeming qualities. But a nuanced take is not what the internet at large gravitates towards. People want heroes and villains. They love to jump on the hate train and tear down a game when given the chance. It seemed to become a real race to the bottom line, with people going from an initial the game really needed more work and isn't worth buying, to then people fully just seeking out the devs to harass them and being dicks. Human beings are terrible. Of course there's going to be some terrible takes, but the internet seems to amplify the worst of people. At this point I feel it's worth branching off to talk about a couple of other things. First is review bombing. This happened recently with Chained Echoes, which in my opinion was the best game to come out last year. Yet all of a sudden it got a huge number of negative reviews with no explanation as to why. That's not helpful. Even when games do get explanations as to why they've been review bombed, it's still not helpful as the reasons tend to be pretty stupid. Have I mentioned yet that I think people are stupid? That appears to be the running theme so far. Review bombing is just en masse messing with the score a game has for a perceived slight and it's dumb. Plus, so often, it's like, oh, there was a woman in the game, oh, what is the wokeness of, we all know there's been so many dumb things like that. But what's also dumb is review scores in general. First off, there's no standardised number you're ranking out of. It tends to go from something out of 5 to something out of 100. This means a score of 5, out of context, could be the best game ever, middling, or the worst game ever. When it comes to a ranking system with very few integers, you don't get much in the way of nuance for scoring things. This leads to us getting 0.5 added on to try and double the numbers a bit to work with, but that still doesn't leave a ton of wiggle room. But when you are ranking out of 100, then you have all the wiggle room you need, and so you get the inverse problem. What differentiates a game ranked as an 82 versus a game ranked as 83? I actually had a look on Metacritic, and they have Destiny 2 marked as an 83, and the Outer Worlds as an 82. Can you tell me the specific reason that makes Destiny 2 exactly 1 point better than the Outer Worlds? 'Cause I can't. And would you say a score of 70 is a good game? Because that feels like it sure could be, but I could also see people saying that a 7 out of 10 game is just okay. But surely 50 would be the middle point of a just okay game, right? But a game with a score of 50 would seem as terrible by people. The scoring system just doesn't make sense. They're just rough numbers to give an individual's ever-fluctuating opinion about a game which will probably be different if they play it in a year's time. Because we're not done yet. I want to complain about the fact that professional reviews are done for a game at or just before launch. This means that, at best, reviewers are probably going to post a review of the game after the first patch, maybe. But in the modern age, we're used to playing games that get patched over and over and over again. If you play Fallout 76 today, it is nothing like what it was like at launch. And reading a review from when the game first came out would not accurately paint a picture of what the game is like now. So many modern games change as time goes by, but the reviews from launch stick around, weighing the game down to the start and not adequately informing potential new players of what the game is actually like. If a game has real significant changes from patches, positive or negative, then the early reviews become outdated, yet still exist and will shape opinions, and that frustrates me to no end. Reviews are garbage, there's just too many problems with them. I had more things I could have spoken about, but I'm genuinely getting a bit worked up about all this. I hate video game reviews. There's so many better ways to get an opinion on a game. Ask your friends, watch some recent gameplay videos of it, wait for it to be on a free trial or something before playing it. Oh, and also don't buy games at launch. Just in general, it's not worth it. Wait for games to get patched, be put on a sale, and then spend your money. Exceptions made for stuff like Game Pass, as you're already paying for that, but in general, stop pre-ordering. That's another rant to have though, and I should wrap things up here. I'm sure you'll let me know your own takes in the comments. I'm just happy to have got this off my chest. Gonna be a few different types of videos coming out over the course of the next month, as I try and work out how to tread water before we get some Starfield news. Hopefully you'll enjoy them. That's it for this video, hope you enjoyed this one. As always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.